The starlit void shimmered with a foreboding beauty as the Eternity's Edge, the flagship of humanity's long-exiled fleet, drifted into the Sol system. Captain Elena Voss stood on the bridge, her face a mask of determination. Around her, the crew buzzed with anticipation and tension. It had been 3 millennia since humans had set foot in this star system, exiled by an alien coalition that had deemed them too dangerous to exist. Earth was gone, nothing more than a lifeless, molten husk destroyed in a war that had long since passed into legend. But humanity had survived, scattered among distant stars, and now they had returned. "Captain, we're detecting remnants of orbital debris," said Lieutenant Arden, his voice tight with emotion. "Traces of old Earth satellites, maybe even the defense grid." Elena nodded. "Send the data to the analysts. I want a full report on anything useful. If there's one thing we've learned over the centuries, it's to use what's left behind." As the crew worked, the ship's AI, Zenith, projected a holographic display of Earth's remains. The once blue planet was now a dull, cracked sphere, its surface marred by glowing red veins of molten rock. Elena stared at it, her mind heavy with the stories of Earth's destruction. The Coalition had deemed humanity a threat and unleashed weapons so catastrophic they'd rendered the planet uninhabitable. The pain of those ancient losses was still fresh, carried through generations like a scar on the soul. A sudden alert broke the somber atmosphere. Zenith's synthetic voice filled the bridge. "Unidentified vessels detected. Closing rapidly." Elena's gaze snapped to the tactical display. A formation of sleek, angular ships appeared, their designs unmistakably alien. The Coalition. Even after all this time, they were still here, guarding the ruins of Earth like vultures circling a carcass. "Battle stations!" Elena commanded, her voice cutting through the rising tension. "This is it, people. We've waited 3,000 years for this moment. We won't let them turn us back now." The crew scrambled into action, their movements precise but tinged with the weight of history. Humanity's fleet was formidable, built from centuries of relentless innovation and hard-earned survival. But the Coalition had ruled the galaxy unchallenged for millennia. This confrontation was as much a test of humanity's resolve as it was of their technology. The Coalition ships hailed them, their communication channel crackling to life. A hologram of a Zalvar commander appeared, tall, insected, with shimmering carapace and multifaceted eyes that gleamed with disdain. Its voice was a mix of clicks and hisses, translated into cold, clipped English. "Humans! We warned you never to return. Leave now, or face annihilation." Elena stepped forward, her expression steely. "We're not here to bow to your threats. We're here to reclaim what's ours." The Zalvar commander's mandibles clicked, a gesture that might have been amusement or irritation. "There is nothing left for you to reclaim. Earth is dead. Your kind is a stain on the galaxy, one we should have eradicated completely." Elena's jaw tightened. "You should have tried harder." The hologram flickered out as the Coalition ships opened fire. The Eternity's Edge lurched as energy bolts slammed into its shields. Elena barked orders, her voice rising above the chaos. "Return fire! Focus on their lead ship. Zenith, analyze their attack patterns and find us an opening." As the ship's weapons unleashed a barrage of plasma rounds and railgun slugs, Elena felt the weight of centuries pressing down on her. This wasn't just a battle, it was the first step in a reckoning that had been brewing for 3,000 years. Humanity was no longer the fragmented, desperate species it had been when Earth fell. They had evolved, adapted, and survived. And now, they were ready to fight. The Eternity's Edge shuddered as another volley of energy blasts collided with its shields, their protective barrier flickering dangerously. Elena gripped the edge of her console, her knuckles white, as the bridge filled with the sound of alarms and shouted commands. The Coalition fleet's precision was unnerving. Each shot seemed calculated to exploit weaknesses. "Shields at 43%! Arden called out. "We can't take much more of this." Elena's mind raced. The Coalition had always been tactically superior, their ships faster and more agile. But humanity had learned to fight in desperate situations, turning even the bleakest odds to their advantage. She refused to let this battle be their last stand. Zenith, redirect auxiliary power to the shields. Divert from non-essential systems, Elena ordered. The AI's voice remained calm despite the chaos. Reallocation underway. Shield integrity stabilizing. Good, Elena said, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. Now let's give them a reason to regret underestimating us. Focus fire on their flanking ships. We break their formation, we break their momentum. The ship's guns roared to life, sending a concentrated barrage at the coalition's smaller vessels. One exploded in a brilliant burst of light, forcing the others to scatter. It was a small victory, but it bought them breathing room. Nice shot! Arden exclaimed, a flicker of hope in his voice. Don't celebrate yet, Elena warned. They're not done with us. True to her words, the coalition fleet shifted tactics. Their remaining ships began coordinating in a fluid, almost organic formation, enveloping the Eternity's edge. A new alert flared on the console. Captain, they're deploying boarding pods. Lieutenant Navarro reported from Tactical. They're trying to breach us. Elena's stomach tightened. The coalition rarely engaged in close-quarters combat, relying instead on overwhelming firepower. If they were deploying troops, it meant they saw the Eternity's edge as a significant threat. Navarro, mobilize the ship's marines. I want every corridor secured. No coalition soldier sets foot on my bridge. Navarro nodded, relaying orders. Elena turned to Zenith. Can we intercept the pods? Negative, Zenith replied. Their trajectory is erratic, designed to bypass point defense systems. Figures, Elena muttered. All right, let's outthink them. Zach, deploy drones to monitor their entry points. Feed real-time intel to the Marines. As the crew worked, Elena felt the ship lurch again. A new warning blared. Boarding pods have landed, Zenith announced. Multiple breaches detected on decks 7, 9, and 12. Elena activated the internal cameras, her stomach sinking as she watched coalition troops pour into the ship. The Zalvar soldiers moved with unsettling coordination, their sleek, insectoid forms gliding through the corridors. Each carried weapons that hummed with destructive energy. Marines are engaging, Navarro said, his tone grim. They're putting up a fight, but these things are relentless. Elena clenched her fists. She had to trust her crew to hold the line, but she couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than a simple boarding action. The coalition's moves were too calculated, too deliberate. They're after something, she said aloud. Arden looked up from his console. What could they want? The ship's systems? The AI? Elena's eyes narrowed. The AI. Zenith, lock down all critical data and secure your core. Already in progress, Captain, Zenith replied. However, I detect unusual activity in engineering. The coalition troops appear to be targeting the reactor. They're trying to disable us, Elena realized. If they take the reactor offline, we're dead in space. Not if we stop them first, Arden said, determination in his voice. Elena nodded. Navarro, redirect a squad to engineering. Arden, you're with me. We're going down there ourselves. Arden blinked. Captain, with all due respect. We don't have time for arguments, Elena interrupted. I'm not sitting on this bridge while our reactor gets sabotaged. Let's move. She grabbed a plasma pistol from the weapons rack and led the way, her heart pounding. The corridors were a chaotic mix of flashing lights, bursts of gunfire, and the shrill cries of the Zalvar soldiers. Human Marines fought valiantly, their makeshift barricades holding back the invaders, but the coalition troops were relentless. In engineering, the situation was dire. Coalition saboteurs were already dismantling key components of the reactor, their weapons carving through reinforced panels like paper. The human defenders were pinned down, outgunned and outmaneuvered. Over here! Elena shouted, firing her pistol to draw the enemy's attention. Arden followed her lead, taking cover behind a console and returning fire. The coalition troops shifted focus, their movements precise and unyielding. Elena's mind raced as she fought. They couldn't hold this position forever. If the reactor went offline, the battle, and their lives, would be over. Zenith, she called through the comms. Is there any way to overload the reactor remotely? Force a shutdown to stop the sabotage? Negative, Captain, Zenith replied. Such a process would destabilize the core entirely. Great, Elena muttered. Then we'll have to do this the hard way. She turned to Arden. Cover me. I'm going for the control panel. You're crazy, Arden said, but he didn't hesitate. He laid down suppressive fire, giving Elena the opening she needed. She sprinted across the room, dodging energy blasts and sliding behind the main console. Her fingers flew over the controls as she bypassed safety protocols and initiated a manual override. The reactor hummed ominously, its systems fighting against her commands. Almost there, she muttered. A Zalvar soldier lunged at her, its blade arcing toward her chest. Arden's shot hit it mid-stride, sending it sprawling. Elena didn't look up, her focus locked on the console. Got it! She shouted as the reactor's shielding systems re-engaged, locking the saboteurs out. The remaining coalition troops hesitated, then retreated, their movements sharp and methodical. Elena sank to the floor, her chest heaving. They're regrouping, Arden said. This isn't over. Elena nodded, wiping sweat from her brow. But we bought ourselves time. Now let's make sure we use it. The Eternity's edge trembled as the Coalition's fleet intensified its assault, their relentless firepower pounding against the ship's battered shields. Elena and Arden sprinted back to the bridge, their footsteps echoing in the tense silence of the corridors. Every second felt heavier, the stakes rising with each passing moment. Status report! Elena barked as she stormed onto the bridge. Navarro turned, his face grim. Shields are at 15%, and we're running out of options. The Coalition forces are regrouping for another boarding attempt, and their main ship is charging some kind of weapon, something big. Elena's eyes snapped to the tactical display. The Coalition flagship was massive, its spiked hull glowing with ominous red energy. The weapon in question was at the ship's core, its power signature steadily climbing. What kind of weapon are we talking about? She asked, her voice sharp. Zenith's holographic avatar materialized beside her. The weapon appears to be a supercharged particle beam capable of penetrating shielded vessels. If fired, it will destroy us. Elena's stomach twisted. The Coalition wasn't taking chances this time. They intended to obliterate the Eternity's edge and end humanity's resurgence once and for all. Suggestions? She asked, scanning the room. The crew was silent, their expressions a mix of fear and determination. Zenith broke the silence. A direct strike to the weapons core could destabilize it, but the flagship's defenses are formidable. Additionally, deploying an EMP pulse could disrupt their systems momentarily, though it would also disable our own. Not ideal, Elena muttered. She stared at the display, her mind racing. The odds were against them, but retreat wasn't an option. They had come too far to turn back now. Navarro, she said, her tone decisive. Prepare the remaining drones for a precision strike on the flagship's weapon. Zenith, calculate the optimal EMP pulse timing to maximize their disruption and minimize ours. Arden, get me on the comms with the fleet. Arden nodded, activating the communication array. Within moments, the faces of the fleet's captains appeared on the holographic screen. They looked battered but resolute, each one carrying the weight of their shared mission. Listen up, Elena began, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. The Coalition's flagship is preparing to fire a weapon that will destroy us. We have one chance to stop it. I'm ordering a full assault on their defenses while we launch a precision strike on the weapon's core. This is it. Everything we've fought for comes down to this moment. The captains nodded, their determination mirroring her own. We're with you, Captain, one of them said. Humanity didn't survive 3,000 years to back down now. Elena ended the call and turned back to her crew. Everyone knows their part. This is our last stand. Let's make it count. As the fleet moved into position, the Eternity's Edge launched its drones, each one armed with high-yield explosives. The coalition ships immediately shifted to intercept, their sleek fighters swarming like a hive of hornets. The space around them erupted into chaos, a blinding mix of explosions, energy blasts, and streaking debris. "EMP ready," Zenith announced. "On your command, Captain?" "Wait for it," Elena said, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. Timing was everything. The drones were closing in on the flagship, but they were taking heavy losses. If the pulse was triggered too soon, the attack would fail. "Now!" she shouted. Zenith activated the EMP, and a pulse of blue energy radiated from the Eternity's edge, spreading across the battlefield. The coalition ships flickered as their systems faltered, their movements becoming erratic. The flagship's weapon dimmed momentarily, its charge disrupted. "Drones are through," Navarro reported. "Impact in 5 seconds." Elena held her breath as the drones reached the flagship's core. The screen lit up as the explosives detonated, sending a shockwave rippling through the massive ship. Its hull cracked, and secondary explosions rippled along its length. The glowing weapon at its core sputtered and went dark. A cheer erupted on the bridge, but Elena wasn't ready to celebrate. "What's the status of the flagship?" Zenith's voice was calm but urgent. "Severe damage detected, but it remains operational. Coalition forces are retreating to protect it." Elena frowned. They had dealt a critical blow, but the battle wasn't over. The flagship's destruction was the only way to ensure the fleet's survival, and humanity's resurgence. "They're wounded, but they're not done," she said. "We need to finish this." As the coalition forces scrambled to regroup, Elena saw an opening. The flagship's defenses were down, and their fleet was in disarray. "Arden, plot a direct course to the flagship," she ordered. "We're taking the fight to them." Arden hesitated. "Captain, if we get too close, then we make sure it counts," she interrupted. "Zenith, prepare a ramming trajectory. If we can't destroy their weapon, we'll destroy the entire ship." The bridge fell silent. It was a desperate plan, but everyone knew it might be their only chance. Navarro broke the silence. "We're with you, Captain." The Eternity's edge surged forward, its engines roaring as it closed the distance to the coalition flagship. The remaining human fleet provided cover, their weapons hammering the coalition ships trying to intercept. "Brace for impact," Elena said, gripping the console. The flagship loomed ahead, its fractured hull glowing with unstable energy. At the last moment, Zenith's voice broke through. "Captain, the coalition flagship's power core is destabilizing. A direct hit may trigger a chain reaction." Elena's heart pounded. "Then let's make sure we hit it hard." The Eternity's edge collided with the flagship's hull, and the resulting explosion lit up the void, a blinding supernova of destruction. For a moment, everything was silent, the aftermath of their gamble hanging in the balance. The blinding light of the explosion faded, leaving a field of scorched debris and flickering embers drifting through the void. For a long moment, silence enveloped the battlefield, the stillness almost deafening after the chaos. On the bridge of the Eternity's edge, alarms wailed, and consoles flickered as the crew struggled to regain control. Elena's voice cut through the haze. "Status report," she barked, gripping the edge of her chair to steady herself. Navarro coughed, brushing debris off his console. "Shields are gone, structural integrity is compromised, but we're still here." "Barely." Arden leaned over his station, his face pale but resolute. "The coalition flagship, it's gone, Captain. Completely destroyed." The news hit the bridge like a wave, relief mingling with disbelief. Elena exhaled, her shoulders sagging as the weight of the moment settled over her. They had done it. Against all odds, they had taken out the coalition's most powerful ship and survived. "Zenith," she said, her voice steadier now. "What's the status of the coalition fleet?" The AI's holographic avatar flickered but remained functional. "The remaining vessels are retreating. Their forces are in disarray, and their communication networks appear to be disrupted. They're falling back beyond the asteroid belt." A cheer erupted from the crew, the sound filling the bridge with a surge of triumphant energy. Elena allowed herself a small smile, but the celebration was short-lived. The damage to the Eternity's Edge was severe, and the costs of the battle were heavy. "Let's not get comfortable," Elena said, raising her voice above the cheers. "We've won the battle, but the war isn't over. Start damage assessments and prioritize life support systems. I want full reports on casualties and resources within the hour." The crew snapped back into action, their discipline kicking in despite their exhaustion. Elena turned to Arden, who was still staring at the tactical display, his brow furrowed. "What is it?" she asked. Arden glanced at her, his expression grim. "We're alive, but we're not out of this yet. The Coalition might be retreating, but they'll be back. And when they return, they'll be angrier and more prepared." Elena nodded. "You're right. But we've shown them that humanity isn't the easy target they thought we were. They'll think twice before underestimating us again." Navarro approached, his face lined with fatigue. "Captain, incoming transmission." "It's from the fleet." Elena straightened, nodding for him to put it through. The faces of the other captains appeared on the main screen, their expressions a mix of relief and awe. "Captain Voss," one of them said, their voice filled with emotion. "You led us to victory. We're in your debt." Elena shook her head. "This wasn't about me. It was about all of us. Humanity stood together today, and that's why we won." Another captain spoke, their voice quieter. "What now? The Coalition might retreat for now, but they'll regroup. We need to prepare for what's coming." Elena's gaze drifted to the tactical display, her mind racing with possibilities. The destruction of the Coalition flagship had bought them time, but it was only the beginning. Humanity's return to the galaxy wasn't just about survival. It was about reclaiming their place among the stars. "We rebuild," she said firmly. "We take the time to repair our fleet, gather resources, and solidify alliances. The Coalition thinks they've crushed us, but they've only made us stronger. We'll show them what 3,000 years of survival has taught us." The other captains nodded, their determination matching hers. The transmission ended, and Elena leaned against her console, her exhaustion finally catching up with her. Zek, one of the engineers, entered the bridge, his uniform smudged with soot. "Captain, we've stabilized the reactor, and life support is holding. But we're going to need serious repairs before we can go anywhere." Elena gave him a tired smile. "Good work, Zek. Start coordinating with the other ships. Let's pool resources and see what we can fix out here." As Zek left, Zineth spoke again. "Captain, we've detected an anomaly near Earth's orbit. It appears to be a station, abandoned, but functional." Elena's brow furrowed. "A station? Coalition? Unlikely," Zenith replied. "It matches human architecture, pre-exile era. It may contain resources or information we can use." Elena exchanged a glance with Arden. The idea of a remnant from Earth's past still lingering in orbit was both thrilling and sobering. It was a reminder of what had been lost, and what they were fighting to reclaim. "Set a course," she said. "If there's something of ours still out there, we're going to find it." The crew worked quickly, the damaged Eternity's Edge limping toward the coordinates Zenith had provided. As they approached, the station came into view, a massive, ring-shaped structure silhouetted against the stars. It was ancient, its surfaces scarred and weathered, but its lights still flickered faintly. "Bring us in," Elena ordered. "Let's see what secrets the past has left for us." As the ship docked with the station, a sense of anticipation filled the air. Elena stood, gripping the token that hung around her neck, a relic of humanity's enduring spirit. They had fought for survival, for vengeance, and for hope. Now, as they stepped into the unknown, one thing was certain: humanity's story was far from over. Elena turned to her crew, a determined glint in her eyes. "We've come this far. Let's see what comes next." And with that, they crossed the threshold, ready to face whatever awaited them beyond the shattered remnants of Earth's past.